So good evening all, welcome to another TRSB Sports podcast with myself, Shane B. I'm pleased to have on this evening for the first time, mindset coach and sports hypnotherapist, Rob Holdsworth. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, Shane. Thanks, man. How are you?
Not too bad. Surviving, struggling, getting on with life as usual. So for yourself, I'd say this is the first time we've had a sports therapist coach. We've had boxers on, we've had trainers on. But the first time we've had someone who looks at the mental aspects of things. So it's quite interesting to actually have you on this evening. So it's a pleasure that you've actually said, yeah, you'd like to come and speak about it. So
of course, man.
Really, I just want to say, just for our viewers, just to tell us a little bit about yourself. What makes you tick as like a coach and a sports therapist? What makes you actually tick?
I love the brain, Shane. I'm a poet as well. No, I'm only messing. But yeah, I love the brain. I love human behavior. And that's literally how I got into what I do. Initially set out to be a counselor and psychotherapist. Part of my first year was an extensive year on hypnotherapy, and that it blew my socks off, man. And then from there, I literally just ran with it. So I was a hypnotherapist for probably. I'm still a hypnotherapist, but I dealt with general sort of issues, barriers and blockages for probably around 2.5 years. And then just before the lockdown, had an epiphany. I was doing a lot of inner work during that time. And yeah, had an epiphany. I love boxing, love anything to do with combat sports. Why don't I marry the two? And it was just like a light bulb moment. And then that is literally where TWI was born. But ultimately, it all fundamentally started with my love for human behavior, the brain, and ultimately how we tick as humans, Shane. So yeah, bro, that's what makes me tick.
Okay. So before I get into obviously what it is you do and obviously the events that you actually put on around the country, I just wanted to ask you, but obviously in a mental respect of things, just something about the Dillian Whyte and Fury fight. Obviously the fight is coming up, but there was a no-show from Dillian Whyte, and a lot of people say, for instance, Fury wins a lot of his fights before he even gets in the ring because of how he mentally approaches press conferences and how he gets into his opponent's heads. Is that something you would say is correct? Is that correct? Can someone actually get into your head via press conferences as the way Tyson Fury does?
100%, Shane. Yeah. Definitely. The mental and psychological warfare that can happen. That's what it's the whole hype of press conferences, isn't it? Obviously, you get to see the two fighters before they get in the ring, and there's always the jibing, the backwards and forwards for the most part. But yeah, you can 100% get in somebody's head. And maybe Dillian Whyte's playing Tyson at his own game. Maybe he's trying to take some element of control within that psychological warfare by not showing up, not giving into it. I wouldn't say it's from like a fearful point. I'd just say he's trying to take control of the uncontrollable, because Fury does have that big narrative behind him.
I suppose in a way you've almost answered the second question off the back of that. It was more a case of, so if a fight is going in to deal with obviously a Fury type character, how do you set your own mind if you're going to go in and deal with that, go into that kind of press conference? Obviously the way Dillian's looked at it this way is for himself is to stay away from it, and potentially that obviously has an effect on Fury and Fury's game plan. But if you're to go into that kind of conference, what tools would you put in place for yourself to sort of like let Fury's propaganda just go over your head without it worrying you? What could you do?
Yeah, well, to answer your question, first of all, Shane, is just focus on yourself. Focus on yourself. But what comes under that is you can only let somebody's word affect you if you let it affect you. If you allow somebody to get into your head, it's down to you. Our perception of the world is down to us. What we think is ultimately what we see. And if we're playing, so this is what I work with a lot of fighters, Shane, is having that focus on yourself as the fighter, rather than playing into what he or she is going to do. You know, playing into their game plan by thinking, oh, what if they come out in this way? What if they put me on the back foot? Or what if it goes to ground and this happens? All the what ifs. Focus on yourself, focus on your skill set, focus on what's got you to that point. In terms of press conferences, if they say something, it's almost like, Shane, if you was walking down the street, am I okay to swear, or is that...
Yeah, far away.
Yeah, is it all right? If I was walking down the street and somebody called you like a prick or a cunt, that's just going to bounce straight off you. You're not going to be bothered about that. But like when you're invested, if it's someone who you know, if it's someone that you're in a relationship with, not necessarily as in a romantic relationship, but Tyson and Dillian, they're in a relationship there. They're about to go to war ultimately. But if you give meaning to what they're saying, then ultimately it is going to affect you. So everything has to start from you. Am I going to take this on board, or am I going to let it ride over my head? Am I going to be focused on why I'm here at this press conference, and ultimately what I'm going to go and do on fight night?
In relation to that fight, when that fight does take place, what's your opinion on the outcome?
It's got to be Fury. It's got to be Fury. But, you know, heavyweights, it's always that puncher's chance. So, yeah, I just think he's at the pinnacle of his game. He's at the pinnacle of boxing, is Fury. Yeah, Fury for me.
So on your socials, I've seen a bit of your social media and stuff. And I think I see that you was recently in the corner at a Muay Thai event for a couple of, were these people that have been working with you?
Not initially, Shane, no. So how that came about, it was through an old client of mine, Alan, who's actually become quite a good friend, Alan Zomkowski. And I went down to his gym, Hussar's fight team in Kenilworth, and I did a talk there, met a couple of his fighters. And yeah, he asked me to come down to the show and do a little bit of work with the lads beforehand. There was one lad who, Ollie, and it was his first fight out. And it was just to help settle those initial nerves. There was Deck there as well. So we did a little bit of work beforehand, did a little bit of breathing, just really getting everything settled, getting them present, not thinking too much about the fight in that moment. So there's a video out on my Instagram where I've got the two lads laid down and we're just focusing on the breathing to start with. And then what we start to do is slowly start, once they're at that calm point, we start to bring in this idea of them going to fight. So bringing images to mind, thinking of themselves at their pinnacle, performing at peak performance. One of Ollie's, I'm sure he won't mind me saying this, but one of Ollie's sort of gripes beforehand or sort of concerns was that he doesn't feel his shins are as conditioned as what they should be. And I said, straight away, change that. Give yourself every opportunity of your shins being strong. Start to think of your shins like iron, like steel. So he literally just got that phrase in his mind that his shins are made of steel. And ultimately, that idea of his shins not being conditioned, it was bypassed. It wasn't thought about. He went out there, performed, kept reminding him through rounds to keep that breathing there. And he got the second round stoppage ultimately. And it was all from, first of all, his skill set, because, he's definitely, he's got it in him to take this far, but also remaining calm, being calm in that situation that allowed him to bring forward his skill set.
So it's really a lot of, from what I gather, it's a lot of, with the mindset, it's a lot of resetting, going back to a point where you can put your mind in a correct place and probably alleviating probably bad habits. So you might have probably a bad train of thought that takes you in a different direction. I suppose what you do, you've got a key to take that back and resolve that issue. Is that what it is?
Yeah, 100%. So hypnotherapy sets to either rewrite limiting beliefs or unhelpful subconscious programs, or Shane, reinforce the beliefs, the programs that are serving them well. So it isn't all about just working with negatives. I do work with some elite sports people at the very top of the game. And the work that we're doing isn't about rewriting or reinventing the wheel, should I say. It's all about seeing how much more we can get out of them, making things a lot more efficient, second nature, habitual. So then there's room for them to be able to take on new information, to grow and develop and take themselves to that next level, really pushing forwards towards achieving that full potential, or at least living as near to it as possible.
I suppose a lot of it is about trying to get an extra edge, get an edge on your opponent, trying to better yourself in as many ways as you can. And I suppose a lot of it, if we go back a bit, it was all about your body. It was about the food you ate. We wasn't really that educated on food up until the last maybe 10 years. It was all eat red meat, get the protein, that will deal with you. That's obviously evolved, and then athletes and clubs and football clubs and rugby clubs and outfits, they've looked at the nutritional side of things, and obviously there's a great benefit in that. And I suppose the second or the final step is you've taken care of all of that. Now it is all about the mind and how you can train your mind to develop, to become a better opponent, better person, better player. But it's, at present, is that being accepted? Is because I suppose the first time I got to hear about sports psychology was probably back in a World Cup about 10 years ago, and it was in relation to England taking penalties and not being able to score penalties. And there was something in the press about the German squad had a sports psychologist in there who was working with their minds to make them better players. Have we got to a point now where this side of things has been a bit more accepted? Are you finding it easy to put forward what you've got to people within sport?
Definitely. I think it's moving in that direction. Two sides of the coin, really, Shane. I feel like I'm very fortunate to be in the position that I'm in. I feel like I got in with this line of work at the right time, just before that sort of just before that takeoff of recognizing that you need to invest in your mind, whether it is through sports or just everyday life. Two sides of the coin, Shane. So yes, I get there's an easy entry into people understanding, sports people understanding that maybe this is the missing piece, and then we can ultimately explore everything there to do with the mind, and then they'll soon find like, oh, this was the missing piece. But there's also the other side of the coin where people are quick to say, no, my mindset's fine, my mindset's great. And there's a quote that I heard quite recently, which was, we can't base yesterday's success on tomorrow's good fortune. And that just screamed at me. The fact that some of these people say, no, my mindset's fine. Yes, your mindset's fine right now. Do you not want to maintain that? Do you not want to get more out of yourself? Do you not want to get to your goal a lot quicker? Because the answer is, once you start to understand about your mind, other things just start to click into place. No longer are you coming up against that resistance. You've got blueprints, templates, ideas to be able to overcome these challenges in such an efficient way that you can just move past them, understand them, and gain closure and on to the next thing. So yeah, yes, it is being accepted, but I still think there is sort of that stigma there. And what I'm trying to create with my brand, Shane, TWR, is to destigmatize what therapy represents. Again, I work with some elite sports people, and there's nothing wrong with their mindsets. It's just about gaining even a better understanding, getting more out of them, becoming more efficient. And I'm really wanting TWR to become synonymous with sports, that you have all of these, as you mentioned before, Shane, about physical. It was all about the physical, wasn't it? The body. In sports now, what do you get? You get all the physical supplements to help you physically. So I want to become synonymous with sport. I want TWR to be that go-to for the mind. So yeah, that is my goal. That is what I'm driving towards, Shane.
I suppose with, for instance, like hypnotherapy, and is everyone susceptible to hypnotherapy? Do you have to have a certain mindset to want to be able to take that on board and work with that, or can anyone be in a position where they can take advantage of, or do you get people that subliminally fight the wanting to be hypnotized, or how does that work?
Anybody is able to get into a hypnotic state, anybody, and we all do it on a daily basis anyway. If you've ever found yourself in that trance where you're just staring, that's a hypnotic trance. You're in that state of, you're in just a trance there, you're in that slower brainwave of theta. Now you have to have an open mind. You have to have an open mind to be able to get into that state. If you resist, somebody came to me, Shane, and said, make me feel more confident, I'd be like, be a bit standoffish about that, first of all, but I can't make somebody do something maybe that they're not fully prepared or willing to do. That's not how hypnotherapy works. I'm not able to, as you would see on TV, swing a watch, click my fingers and make them do something. It's all about that inner, deeper, introspective work. It all works with relaxation. If somebody can be open and just completely give into the process, they will find that they can get results quicker. Now, depending on person to person, somebody might experience results very quickly. Some people might experience those results over a long period of time. It just depends on willingness, openness, and also susceptibility, suggestibility, as what we say within the industry.
And I suppose with the what you have to offer in respect to courses and working with a client to obviously to give them what they need, the focus to benefit. In relation to what you do, I can see how potentially you can gain improvement for someone in relation to like maybe training. Maybe someone finds it difficult to train or doesn't feel that they put the 100% effort into it. I can see from what you can do. Would that be correct to say that that is something you can help people with? Massively.
Creating clarity on why are you going to training? What is it that you're struggling with right now? It is all about having direction. Us as humans, Shane, we need that higher purpose. We need to be constantly working towards something. We're not made to just be sitting on the sofa all day. We need to be constantly working towards something, either little or something very small or something like huge, astronomical. So, yeah, exactly that, mate.
I was just thinking in relation to the type of sports people that you could obviously benefit. And I was just thinking in my head earlier on today, so who can benefit from obviously TWR? And I'm thinking obviously you've got your athletes, you've got your boxers, you've got your MMA. And then part of me is thinking, well, what about these snooker players? It might be a weird thing to suggest, but you think, let's say a snooker player struggles, gets to a certain score, gets to 100, or can't break the 100 break, that he could do. Is that again something where you can go in and give someone the techniques or the tools to be able to get over that? It seems like people must have a hurdle or there's a block, and some people can't get over a certain hurdle. So I'm guessing again, you put in place things for these people to help them reach their goals.
Yeah, definitely. If any snooker players are listening, I'd definitely love to be able to see what we can work with, for sure. There is also always, Shane, that barrier, that hurdle, what you just mentioned there about just almost getting over that finish line. With fighters, with some people that I've worked with, it's some of the fighters knowing that they can finish someone, but there's something that's just held them back from pulling the trigger. And then on the back of that, there might have been stopped, knocked out, submitted, and there is that hurdle there. So if someone was trying to break that 100 score, it'd be a case of understanding, well, why is there a limitation there? Where has that come from? Where is it stemmed from? Finding the root and the cause of that, and potentially either letting that go, understanding it, rewriting it through hypnotherapy, and then putting in some conscious tools to be able to overstep that hurdle. It is all about focus right now, in the moment, whatever's in front of you, putting away all distractions, with snooker, you've got dead silence, which can be quite deafening. You know, silence can be quite deafening, getting in your own thoughts, and maybe that might stop them from pulling the trigger in that sense. So a lot of what I do, Shane, is about working with focus, getting into the zone, getting into that flow state, and being able to find the mental and physical attributes to allow them to get into that state and recognize them.
Yeah, I think one of the most impressive things that I saw while scrolling through some of your information and obviously through your website was the dealing with the boxer that broke his jaw.
Mm.
And I thought that was because obviously I was thinking, well, how do you what you do is you improve people through, you improve their sport, you improve their results, you give them the belief to perform better. But then from what I gathered from there, it was the guy was having an issue with a previous injury in the jaw, and it was about trying to get him to overcome that fear. Was that correct?
Exactly right. Good old Angelo. Me and Angelo have become very good mates. This is the beauty of this line of work that I'm in. Because it's very informal. I end up being very close with the people that I work with. But yeah, me and Angelo started working together. I don't know, I bet it's almost a year ago now, and it was all to do with that fear of getting in there and his jaw being weak. Over the sessions, we soon reprogrammed that, and actually it paved the way for actually some other things that we can improve on, strengthen, and work with. And actually, that issue with the jaw ended up subsiding, and it was rewritten. And we rewrote that belief through identifying that his jaw is actually strong. It ended up healing itself. The body, we worked a lot about with imagery about how strong the body is, how it's so natural to repair and heal itself right at the cellular level. So that was a lot of the work that we dealt with, and ultimately, yeah, we was able to move past that and onto better, bigger and better things to help him focus and push on.
And then again, off the back of obviously seeing that information and the highlights of that, it then led me on to think, well, there's obviously got to be an opening again for you in relation to football. I know football might not be at the top of your agenda, but if you're looking at what you can offer and across the board, if we're talking about a footballer that's had a bad injury, broke his leg, you're probably going to have the same footballer with the same thought process as what your boxer had. Does he want to go in for a tackle? Is that going to prevent him from getting back to where he was? So again, I guess that's another avenue for yourself to look at.
Yeah, for sure, Shane. I think this is why I've started. I initially started with rugby players. Slowly started to transition into, even though I wanted to primarily just work with boxers and mixed martial artists and fighters. My first initial experience with sports was rugby. Then I've primarily moved into boxing and MMA, Muay Thai, kickboxing. I've got a tennis player, I've got a rugby player now. So I am starting to diversify into other areas, albeit the dynamics are completely different. There's that one commonality between them all, which is the mind. So you're dead right, Shane, in terms of that. It's very transferable to football. If someone's broke the leg going into that tackle, it's all about that belief. It's all about that meaning that's attached to that event or situation, and looking to rewrite that, reframe it, and move past it.
And I see that obviously you talk about the MMA a lot. I see that you are doing something with Michael Davis, MMA fighter.
Yeah, that's right.
And so how did that come about?
So me and Mike were been speaking for a couple of months, just going backwards and forwards, a few ideas, and then I just offered the proposal to potentially work with him. We jumped on a call, had a conversation about what it is I could offer and what he could offer me as well. So it is on a sponsorship agreement, and he loved the idea of what I could help him with. So we literally just started working together this week, Shane, on Tuesday, and first great session, really opened it up. He's an absolutely cracking guy, and he's highly talented, highly skillful, and it's just great to see how how much more we can get out of him, especially being at the sort of pinnacle of mixed martial arts, being in the UFC. So yeah, it's fantastic to be working with that caliber of person.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see that story unfold, see how things go with that. And then finally, there was some more big news for yourself and obviously for TWR, and that was working with one of your close friends at Leeds Rhinos.
I love that. Absolutely. Yeah, Ash Handley. Yeah, me and Ash go way back. We went to school together. We're very good friends, and then of course he went into rugby. I went off into the working world, and then we've been in contact for probably around 6 months. We met up a couple of months ago, and then just got chatting and stuff. And he asked me a few questions, and I just said, let's do some work together, see what we can uncover, see what we can work with. And that's exactly what we're doing. And he's playing tonight as well. So it'll be interesting. We had a session yesterday. It'll be interesting to see how he can put in some of the things that we've already worked on and then that's going to give us data to be able to move forward. But yeah, it's just class, especially when we've done a full circle working with a close mate. It's great.
Brilliant. And hopefully that will open up the doors again. I'm guessing if the more success stories for yourself, obviously the better for TWR. I suppose that's what it's all about at the end of the day. Obviously, what you do is for sport, but then no doubt what you do and how you work with mindset and so on, it comes back into normal life for the normal Joe Blogs and for the people that watch our show, for instance. We're not all sports people, but we all at some point will suffer with some issue, whether it's nerves, whether it's stress, whether it's anxiety. So I was wondering if you potentially had 3 tips for our viewers for certain scenarios. So just let's say, for instance, you're the person who goes for job interviews, but you always sort of you get the anxiety or you get the nerves beforehand. What would be a couple of tips that you could give our viewers for just that kind of scenario?
So that specific scenario there, Shane, straight away I would say shift the power. Shift the power. You go into an interview and you're thinking, oh, I'm in the hot seat, I'm going to be grilled, they're going to be asking me this question, that question, and you're basically giving away your power, your strength that you have to these unknowns, these unknown people. Shift the power. This is when I used to work in offices, Shane. This is something that I used to do. I used to thrive off of interviews because I used to do exactly this. Shift the power. Go in there thinking that they want me. They've pulled me in here because they want me. So I'm going to give them the information just to back up what was already shown in their interest. And then I'm going to ask them questions, making sure that I'm making the right decision in this moment. So yeah, I would open up the room to different questions about the company, their direction, and ultimately potential growth from the role that I was going to go into. So yeah, shifting the power. Again, it's all about yourself. Ultimately, if you put that power outside of yourself, it's going to leave you feeling a little bit on edge. It's going to bring in those nerves, that anxiety. It's going to leave you very tentative within your approach. You need to be going in there fully confident with what you're offering as a person, what you're going to bring to that company.
And in relation then, because again, there's lots of people out there who probably suffer from some form of anxiety or to some degree. In relation to anxiety, is there any sort of, like you mentioned about breathing patterns earlier, is there any simple techniques or things that our viewers can sort of take going forward? It might be a dad that watches this later on. It might be a son who's going to school in the morning, someone who's got an exam. Do you mean something just to help that kind of viewer?
Yeah, for sure. With anxiety, you need to bring yourself out of that fight or flight response. You need to be telling your brain that you're calm, you're relaxed. How you do that is one of the most effective things is through breathing. Now, there's a 4-7-8 breathing technique. So breathing in for 4 seconds, the mental count of 4 through the nose, holding for 7 seconds, and then breathing out through the mouth for the count of 8. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Once you start to focus on your breathing, your mind's not going to be wondering as much. It's going to start bringing you back to that present, focusing on your breathing. Then you will start to see things a little bit more rationally. and you will start to see things from a little bit of a clearer perspective, so that you're not in that fight or flight response and seeing everything from that mindset. It starts with breathing. If you can do the 4-7-8 breathing technique, allow yourself to come back to the moment, and then it will give way for those thought processes to slow down and start to see things for what they truly are.
Oh, brilliant. So lastly and finally, I suppose, it's more about you. Obviously, you've taken the time to come on the show, which we obviously appreciate immensely. Really, this is time for you, really, just to say where your events are going to be, what you've got planned for the year, where they are, your website, and how people can just get in touch with you, whether it's a sports person, a club, or so. And how it's your floor now.
Perfect. Well, all I would say is follow me on Instagram, Therapy with Rob. Everything is on there. My events are sporadic and they come up as and when. So the little pop-up events, I'll be going to do a talk here, a talk there. I'll be just popping up at shows, different fighting shows, different clubs, things like that. I've got some more podcasts coming up. If you follow me on Instagram, it's a really good place to keep track of what I'm doing. And there's a lot of great content on there in terms of value, what I can give you through my videos. Even if it is just a case of you following me and looking at my videos, I guarantee you will walk away with something from those. And if you've got any sort of barrier or blockage, or you're just not feeling quite content within yourself, reach out. We can work. I don't just work with sports people. Probably about 90% of my client base are sports people. I've got about 10% that are the general public, let's call them. And that can work with confidence. It can work with focus. It can work with anxiety, and overall just mindset coaching. So yeah, follow me on Instagram, Therapy with Rob. And if you've got any questions, drop me a message. I'll be happy to jump on a call with you for sure.
Brilliant. Well, they're perfect to have you on here this evening, Rob. Real pleasure to have you on here. It'd be a pleasure to have you on in the future as well, once we find out what you've been doing, how you're progressing. But yeah, you enjoyed the evening now.
I appreciate that, Shane. Yeah, I'll be, I'd love to come back on again.
Lovely. Thanks a lot, mate. Cheers.
Appreciate that, man. Take care. Bye now.